Hey everyone, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich with your Monday weather update. Well, we had the cold weekend, the snow came in yesterday, melted within a couple hours. Now it looked like spring by the afternoon, freezing cold this morning. We had a hard freeze with temperatures down in the mid-20s, and now we turn our attention to the next storm system. Not as much winter weather for us, but boy, is it going to be cold around here. Let's go right to the maps and show you this complicated setup, which is going to be a big winter storm for the Northeast and the East Coast. Not so much for us because we're going to be barely warm enough for this not to be an issue. Here's our northern branch system coming in pretty strong in and of itself, but down to the south we've got low pressure trying to form in the Gulf. This is going to jump to the Carolina coast and become a massive nor'easter as this energy gets absorbed into it, and so does this. So we're going to see three things kind of come together here on the East Coast. The whole time, we've got really cold air in place. For us, we've got this little high which is pumping in the cold air this morning, but there's a big Arctic high up here which is going to continue to supply cold air to this system. So this is going to be a really complex system as it moves our way. The impact on us is primarily going to be really cold temperatures, wind, and likely mostly rain. And I say likely mostly rain because I'm going to show you how things could unfold, because some parts of our viewing area, especially the mountains and foothills, could see an icy mix before this changes to primarily snow on the backside. So here's a look at the system right now on the NAM3. This is a parallel run that we do with the model. And you can see the moisture increasing. One thing you notice, every once in a while you see some pink showing up in here. That's because this moisture is going to be riding up and over the cold air damming, we call it. It's the wedge of cold air trapped against the mountain. So initially, excuse me, late today and really early this evening, some of this first precipitation that comes in might be sleet, a little bit of freezing drizzle, or rain. It really depends on the surface temperature. I don't think it's going to be freezing rain because we're probably going to be just above freezing. So probably sleet initially in some of these heavier bands, and you can see them developing. This is by about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Some light rain or maybe sleet developing, primarily a cold rain. This is why temperatures today are going to be stuck in the low 40s. We will not go much warmer than that. We might actually fall as the precipitation moves in. But also notice along the mountains, this is where we got some snow, rain, sleet, freezing rain, probably the potpourri of everything. We're going to have a little bit of everything in the mountains with the initial start of this. And you can see as we go into tonight, things really start to crank up as the low on the coast starts to form. You see low pressure here. You see a couple areas trying to show up here, but it's likely somewhere in here we're going to see low pressure form as this secondary system comes in, really energizes it. So let me back this up tonight. Jumped ahead a little too quick there. We'll go to 8 o'clock tonight. And you can see the nor'easter taking shape along the coast. Here's our nor'easter. This is likely all rain, but notice in the mountains, especially the eastern-facing slopes and some of those valleys, probably a snow, sleet, freezing rain mix. Eventually maybe even changing to rain for a couple hours before it changes back to snow. Look at the low cranking up overnight. Big-time rain and probably some thunder with this. In the areas in here. We'll have to watch this. We could see some elevated thunderstorms developing, but the story you're going to hear about is the nor'easter and blizzard that's going to develop up in here, because this is going to become a massive blizzard for parts of the Northeast while we're on kind of the warm side. We'll go through the overnight hours. This thing really starts to crank up. Now as the colder air starts to wrap around the backside, you'll notice some of the higher elevations here, it starts changing over to snow, but in the valleys we're probably going to see a little bit of ice where the cold air gets trapped down there. So we go, let's go to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and notice in the mountains it starts to change to all snow. This is as the cold air aloft starts to come in, and we actually see the low cranking up. Look at that thing. It's a monster. Grabbing moisture and throwing it back inland. And I mean, just look at this band of heavy snow that develops from West Virginia, Western Virginia, up through Maryland and parts of Pennsylvania, D.C. right on the edge of this, Philly, Newark, and then New York gets in on the action. We'll go to 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 a.m. And notice on the back side, here comes, this is all snow now coming into the mountains, northwest flow snow. Maybe a brief snow band here, which is the one thing we have to watch out for in the Piedmont. Probably not going to be a big deal, but that would be something to keep an eye on the backside. But look at this. I mean, this is a monster storm that is cranking up. This is This is one people will talk about for a while because this snow band in here is going to be ridiculous. And the pressure here is basically going to be essentially a hurricane with onshore flow. So coastal flood warnings in effect for many sections. Even the Outer Banks has to watch for some sound side flooding because this system's going to be really, really strong. Go to 9 o'clock tomorrow, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And there's our system. Notice in the North Carolina mountains, northwest flow snow will be very prevalent. We've got moisture coming off the Great Lakes. Looks like another little meso low off of Lake Michigan. So a lot of wraparound moisture coming to the mountains, which is going to produce some decent snowfall in there. You can see I'm not buying that. This is old information here. This is probably from yesterday's snow showing up in the model. It all melted, so it's not on the ground. So let's look at the 6 hour. Let's look at the snow depths here. But definitely got some big time snow probably in the mountains and maybe something up around Greensboro. That'd be something to keep an eye on. I'm not sold on that yet, but it's definitely a fascinating system to keep an eye on. As this system continues to race up the coast, it just hammers the Northeast. I mean, this is just ridiculous what it's going to be doing from Boston to New York to Philly, while we're going to be on the very, very cold side. Just Arctic air comes funneling into the Southeast, and this is going to set the stage for 2 or 3 nights of incredibly hard freezes, maybe killing freezes for the peach crop, which would be devastating. Maybe 90% of the crop could be lost if it's still flowering by Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. But you could see the system moving up the coast. So a huge system to deal with. It's going to be rolling through our region later today. Miserable cold rain for most of us, but the potential for a little wintry mix even in the Piedmont late tonight and early tomorrow, and big time snows possible in the mountains. Right now, winter weather advisories are up in the mountains. Let me actually pause this and I'll show you the winter weather advisories, which are in effect real quickly here. Turn off. So there's the winter weather advisories in effect for the mountains. We might see this upgraded to winter storm warnings, and you can see the winter storm warnings further north, and then you get up towards DC and these areas. This is all coastal flood warnings and blizzard warnings. Just a massive system. There's all the advisories for winter weather. Unbelievable. Big storm impacting a lot of people, so travel will be impacted. All the airports in the Northeast will be a mess. So if you're traveling by plane, please call ahead. This is going to be a huge winter storm for the Northeast, and hard to imagine we're talking about this in mid-March. I'll have it completely covered today at 4, 5, and 6, and of course, we will do a Facebook Live tonight talking about this as we've got another active pattern. And please, farmers, gardeners, do the best you can. This is going to be a seriously bad week for freezes. Probably the worst we've seen since the Easter freeze. I think it was 2012 that we had a really bad Easter freeze. So it looks very similar to that setup. I'll see you today starting at 4.